What I want to talk about a little bit tonight is what we can do when we have a loved one in the grip of an ice addiction, because it's all good and well to understand that they're sick, understand it may not be their fault, but it doesn't change the fact we've got a nut job living in a house, and we want to do everything we can to try and get them help. I used ice myself for 9 years, and it wasn't glamorous. You know, I did all the things that I never thought I'd do. I stole my mum's jewellery, I pawned all my belongings, I robbed every employer I had, and I would literally do anything I needed to do to make sure I had enough ice to use. And the reason I used was really simple. Ice felt really good for a long time. You know, it was instant. Didn't matter what sort of day I had, who I owed money to, what the police were doing. If I had enough gear, I could just put all that behind me and have a good time. That's why I used. It felt good. You know, it wasn't the school I went to. It wasn't that my mum didn't hug me enough, or my mum didn't hug me too much, or you know, I didn't get the job, or I didn't get the school. I used ice because it felt good. And it felt good for a really long time until it didn't feel good anymore. And I started suffering from psychosis. And I would do strange things like walk up and down my street, knocking on my neighbours' doors, saying goodbye to them because the CIA were after me and they were going to shoot me later that night, and there was nothing I could do about it, and I was just here to say goodbye. You know? Or thinking that every car on Pascal Vale Road was the hit team. And I couldn't leave. You know, and in the end just being so scared and my amygdala going berserk that I'd be in the fetal position just rocking backwards and forwards until someone called the police to take pity on this guy who's in the fetal position crying on the nature strip. You know, that's the funny stuff. The ugly stuff is, you know, coming home at 2 o'clock in the morning and grabbing my infant children and bundling him into my wife's room and putting furniture up against the door because the people in the fictitious car chase from the city are going to come inside and shoot us all, and having a screaming wife and screaming kids, not knowing what the hell's going on, you know. But the danger of ice, and I see it in people every day and experience it myself, is that, you know, we can experience all that trauma, but keep going back to it. Keep going back to it. I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to do that again. You know, and a week later, 2 weeks later, I've got a pipe in my hand that I'm using again. You know, and us addicts can really mean it that we want to stop. You know, I can look mum in the eye and promise her I'm never going to use again. You know, and I can be really believable because I mean it. You know, when my firstborn son was born addicted to drugs through no fault of his own, and I pulled up and stopped using all drugs for that month he was in hospital while he was detoxing. I made that kid a lot of promises, you know. Things are going to be different, I'm never going to use again, drugs aren't going to be part of our family. He's wailing, you know, being fed morphine to keep him alive. I'm making a lot of really sincere promises to him. And, you know, 28 days when DHS let us take him home, after some pretty rigorous interviewing, you know, you could not convince me I was ever going to use ice again. Ever. No way. How could I? You have to be a sociopath, wouldn't you? After inflicting that on my own child. So we have a party. My son's alive. Invite all the family. He's been out of hospital a week. I get on the piss. The beers aren't hitting the spot anymore. Let's get some cognac. Up the bottle shop, up the cognac. By 11 o'clock I've got my hand around my cousin's neck. He'd better get me some ice and get it quick or things are going to get ugly. You know? And he could not have convinced me the week before that I would do that. How could I do that, you know? My son's asleep, 20 metres away, survived a detox, and I'm in the garage waking up. Yeah. I didn't know why. You know, the next day I felt terrible. How could I have done that? My wife's angry, my mother's disappointed. I don't know why I did it, I just did it because I got hammered. I understand today that I was suffering from addiction, you know. It didn't matter who I promised, my son, myself, whoever. I was not in control of my own actions. I'm a drug addict, which means that without treatment, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. You know, I had a beautiful way to describe rock bottom, you know, because I always thought there was going to be an event that would stop me, you know. But I was told the other day, rock bottom is when you stop digging. And unfortunately, I didn't stop digging until 34. Yeah, I had my first experience with alcohol at 12. My friends all had a little swig. I drank 3/4 of a bottle, had my stomach pumped, and ended up in hospital at 12. So there was a little alarm bell going off. By 34, I was, you know, using ice and heroin more days than not. Why? Because I was an untreated drug addict. And drug addiction is a progressive illness that will get worse over time, not better. So I just did what any normal drug addict would do without treatment, and I progressively got worse and worse and worse. Until eventually, I had someone who stood up to me, which was my third wife. And she said, "Fuck you. I'm not putting up with this anymore. You can't come here anymore. You can't see the children. We want no part of you." First person ever, because I was a real bully. I said these can be real bullies, yeah? We'll push and we'll pull and we'll use all sorts of manipulation to get you to do what we want in active addiction. But I finally came up against someone that didn't want to play that game anymore. And to have access to my children, I was required to get clean. And I met some people that guided me in the right way, and I eventually got clean. But it was only through treatment. It wasn't about rock bottoms or me wanting to. It was I finally engaged in some treatment. So what I want to talk about tonight, in a long-winded way, is how we can encourage people who are suffering from ice addiction to engage in treatment. Because if you have a loved one in your life who's using ice, I'm sorry, but the countless pep talks you're giving them and the flat and the money and whatever else you're doing, they're never going to stop. A true ice addict or true drug addict of any nature will not stop without treatment because it's beyond their capacity. Who's got someone at home who's using ice? Fantastic. Hands up, don't be shy. Awesome. Yeah, now. Let's do now. Sorry, can I have some hands again? Can I grab you? What's your name? What's your name? Deborah. And this person, do they live with you? Okay. And how long has this person been using ice for? Okay, great. Deborah? Yeah. Okay. Going to do a little experiment here, Deborah. All right? I could fall flat on my face, but who dares wins, eh? Okay. I want to see if you identify first. Is this it? Okay. So when I used ice, or any drug for that matter, I would feel really, really good. That's what I used. Yeah? Tremendous amount of relief. Anyone who uses ice knows what that feels like. Maybe you haven't used it in a week, a few days. That first hit, oh, fuck, that's good. Yeah? We know what I'm talking about? That's what we use. Yeah, because it feels really good. And it's instant. I can have an argument with my wife, whoever, have no money in my pocket. That first hit, whoa. That's what I'm using. It's really powerful. Yeah? Instant relief from my circumstances. Instant relief from my emotional anguish. Instant relief from my social maladjustment. Yeah? But I'm a drug addict, which means when I use a drug, I can't stop. Yeah, countless times I would ring my partner, wife, say, "Sweetheart, I'll be home in a couple of hours, I'm just going to the pub." I'm lying to her, I'm going to my dealer's, and I've got every intention of just having a couple of puffs and coming home. I'm not lying to her. I want to be home at 8 o'clock for dinner. Yeah? I'm past the lie detector test at 4 when I call her. But I can't stop. I keep using, then I have a whack and then I turn my phone off and I come home on Sunday. Yeah, that's not my intention. Yeah? And that reaction, which Louise touched on before, affects about 5 to 10% of people. There's somewhere between 5 and 10% of us that when we use drugs, we simply do not have the capacity to stop. Now, am I born with that? Is that environmental? Who cares? It's really irrelevant. You know, it'd be nice if someone could tell me one day, but it's irrelevant to what I need to do to stop. So me personally, I don't dedicate any headspace to it. Yeah? But because, as a direct consequence of simply how much drugs I'm using, things happen in my life. Yeah? I lose my job. My mental health suffers because I haven't slept in 3 days and the shadows are starting to move and the CIA's after me. Yeah? My relationships suffer. Financial issues. What else? Accommodation, a couch surf. Reese, this is killing me. The net result of what initially was that awesome feeling and an immediate relief I got ends up quite painful. My life ends up in crisis. I'm lurching from one crisis to the next. Is this familiar? Yeah, okay, good. Means you're in the right place. Okay? Now, over 15 years, I would lurch from one crisis to the next. And I'm doing this to see if people in the room can identify. And each time there was a crisis, I would have what I call this pain-induced moment of clarity. Fuck, my life's falling apart. I've got to do something different, man. Yeah? I've got to pull up. This is really fucked. Yeah? And I would make a bunch of promises. Not only to myself, but to Mum as well. I'm going to stop. I promise. I can see the error of my ways now. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to be a 9 to 5 man. I'll be home for dinner. And I'm just going to change. I've finally grown up. And I've finally seen that I've got to live a different way now. And I really mean it. I really mean it. And I'll sell you some hope and some new promises and a new plan. And I'll have what? A short period of abstinence. Where I don't use or I use less for a while. The good old-fashioned pull my head in for a while. Yeah? Things will quieten down. I'll pay a few bills, I'll be home for dinner a few nights. My wife will let me back in the bedroom, and everything will seem okay for a while. But what I wasn't aware of, I need to do something about my handwriting. For 15 years, something I wasn't aware of is that there's consequences for me of not using drugs. There's consequences of me being sober that I was not aware of. Within a short period of time of being sober, I started to get really bored, lethargic, resentful. That wife or girlfriend that was begging to take me back, I'm suddenly staring at her thinking, what's in it for me? I get depressed again. Basically, me and drugs, without drugs, was quite painful as well. Was I consciously aware of that? No, I wasn't. I just knew life didn't sparkle enough for me. I wasn't really happy. So after a week, after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, a month, sometimes 3 months was the maximum for me I could last. I'd say, fuck it. Fuck it. The exact opposite of all these really sincere, loving promises I'd made. And I'd go and use. Just a little bit. But hang on, I can't use this a little bit. Fuck, it's Sunday again. What am I going to tell her? I've done this again. What's happened? Yeah. For 15 years, I lived in unsustainable relief, pain, unsustainable relief, or pain. And the tail was wagging that dog. I had no control over which part of that cycle I sat in. None whatsoever. When the drugs were finished with me, they were finished with me. Yeah? And they'd give me a break for a while.